first speaker, our first pro speaker. Welcome, Feng Han.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. The road has always been the backbone of commerce. Infrastructure is what it takes to build economy of any municipality. We have come very far from when Camino El Real or the Royal Road was the main traffic artery of California. The Golden State now has almost 38 million residents, about 70% of which would call the greater LA area or the Bay Area home. Even in the era of internet, transportation between these two hubs is still critical. The questions are, why the bullet train? And why now? Fellow Toastmasters and honorable guests, the bullet train, or high-speed rail, is actually a very mature technology that is widely utilized in countries like France, Japan, or now in China. Besides a stellar safety record, it has been proven to be a major economic driver. For example, the French high-speed rail system, with about 100 million ridership in 2007, had a profit of $1.75 billion. The phase 1 of the California high-speed rail project from San Francisco to LA is expected to have about 65 to 95 million riders per year and a net operating revenue of $2.23 billion by 2023. The construction and the maintenance of a high-speed system will create thousands of jobs. The phase 1 of the California system alone is expected to create 990,000 job years over 15 years. On top of that, it is expected to create 450,000 permanent jobs from the new commuters. Some may say, oh, we have come out of this housing crisis. But any job opportunity grows like this. It's a cannot miss opportunity for California. The high-speed rail system will use only about a third of energy per rider as compared to the airplane, or about 1/5 of energy as compared to a car. When the system is fully operational, it is expected to eliminate 12 billion pounds of greenhouse gas emissions per year, equivalent of removing 1 million cars from the road. The U.S. has always looked up to California for passing environmentally sensible legislation, or be the trendsetter for environmentally friendly infrastructure. Why let them down? In summary, the high-speed rail system is economically sensible, creates thousands of jobs, and is an environmentally friendly alternative to flying or driving. The California voters have expressed their approval in a resounding manner in 2008. Our legislature has approved the initial financing in July 2012. The Fed gave us the green light in September 2012. So what are we waiting for? Let's get the shovels ready, and we can have the second half of debate in San Francisco.
Thank you. County Speaker number 1, Michael Kuchar.
Let's face it, traveling is no fun. You take a car, there's accidents, there's traffic, bad music on Sirius radio, it's just awful. You take a train, you gotta take off your plane, you gotta take off your shoes, get your body cavity searched. Who needs it? But a railway, yeah, that's it. We'll string a railway all the way across California, and that'll solve all our problems. Sounds like a great idea to solve our transportation needs in California. However, on closer examination, the current proposal for high-speed rail across our state is really a railway to nowhere. And there's several problems. I'm going to mention 4 of them. One is the cost. The current estimate to put a railway from Los Angeles to San Francisco is $68 billion. Now, to give an example how big 68 billion is, that is 68 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 zeros. That's how much it's going to cost. It's way too expensive. The other aspect is it has severe negative environmental consequences. Going through Central California has to go through some very valuable farmland. Farmland that we need to grow food, especially since more and more farmland is being destroyed due to development and shifting of climate. As a matter of fact, numerous farming groups are suing the California Railway organization to stop this railway because it's going to be destroying valuable farmland. The third problem this has, who's going to ride it? The California Rail Authority thinks that 2 to 5 million people are going to be riding this by the year 2022. Yeah, and I'm the kosher tooth fairy. It has the same problem that those of us who are familiar with the San Fernando Valley have with the dedicated bus line and the subway system is there's no feeder lines feeding into it. I can easily take, where I work in the eastern San Fernando Valley, the orange line to where I work. But the trouble is, how do I get going in the opposite, the north direction? Because it all just flows in one direction. That is a problem. Who's going to go there? Will you be willing to drive 25 miles to go to an entrance point for a train that maybe will take you 200 miles? I think not. And lastly is the limited access. As I pointed out, there's not enough stations along the way and access points to get to it. So in conclusion, the high cost, the destruction of farmland and the environmental damage, and access to get to the rail line is really a boondoggle. And we want California to be the poster child for government inefficiency. Mr. Tosman.
Michael has raised some very valid concerns. These are not new concerns. The voters have heard about these in 2008. Let's talk about volume. Instead of building this high-speed rail system, what is the alternative to address traffic? LA has the worst traffic jam in the whole country. San Francisco is not that far behind. By building this high-speed rail system that will allow us to not build more highways, that will allow us to not build more airport terminals, which would also consume valuable very valid point about the feeder as compared to San Francisco, especially when compared to New York or Boston. We have a deficiency in public transportation. Building this high-speed rail is not an overnight process. It will take many years. That's why when we talk about estimate, when are we going to make a profit of 2.23? It's year 2023. We have some time to address the feeder issue to this public transportation system. 6 to 8 billion is not spent in 1 year. We are getting a lot of commitment from the federal. In fact, the fact the legislature approved the initial funding last year allow us to get the federal stimulus money for that initial stage. 6 to 8 billion over more than 15 years. It's an investment for our kids, for our grandkids, for the environmental health of the state in the long term. It's well worth every penny.
My worthy opponent brings us to a really very good point. Granted, in 2008, voters approved this rail project, but if voters had a chance to vote again, 59% would say no. Because of the escalating costs, people have an opportunity to look at it and realize, I can't use this for my daily commute. I don't commute daily to San Francisco from LA. So it is really worthless. And the point being, you bring up other countries do have high-speed rail projects, but they are not profitable. In China and Asian countries, they're being subsidized by the government. And the problem is, in California, that's unique from Europe, is that we are so spread out. European countries, Asian countries, mass transportation works because the cities and people are dense populations. Here we're scattered everywhere. San Francisco has the BART system. San Francisco is all compact. Los Angeles, we're all over the place. So the argument that this is going to pull people out of their cars, it won't. Because it doesn't access our needs as daily workers to go a 10 or 20 or 30 mile commute. So again, for $68 billion, I think we have better uses for our money instead of sitting here and putting a railway and destroying our farmland and destroying our beautiful California economy and environment.
Welcome on the pro side from District 12, Michael Ossie.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I fly from Ontario, Southern California, to Sacramento and Oakland every other week. It's a miserable experience. Anyone have this experience? You drive, you have to park, you take the shuttle to the airport, you have to get there an hour and a half beforehand, you have to go through security, take off your shoes, get everything looked at, take out your computer, and the plane could be delayed if there's a bad weather or the plane's coming from somewhere else. That short little 55-minute flight can end up taking 2 or 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, maybe 5 hours. Think about the rail on the convenience side, this high-speed rail. 2.5 hours from LA to San Francisco, no matter what. It's not affected by the weather. There's no security issues. You can take your computer with you. Wi-Fi on the train. You can do all your work the whole way. You could probably do a conference call. No downtime at all. So just the convenience alone. And if this high-speed rail could take 70 million car trips off our streets, it'll improve our environment. Clean air. We need clean air. Think of all that carbon dioxide. I don't have the numbers. We can take out of the air through 70 million less car trips. Maybe you would have to build less freeways. There wouldn't be as many cars on the road. You could have actually said that the bullet train will go from LA to San Diego. So many people are commuting in that direction. At least our area in the Inland Empire going to San Diego, you could eliminate that. You could run trains instead of driving. I work in public health. Think of the lives saved by taking all those people off the freeway. They won't be crashing into each other. You can be drunk on the train and kill anybody. Right? Did I say drink on the train? How great is that? There's a car. You can go right to the club car, have a drink, get on the computer. Life is good. It'd be like being on a cruise instead of drive. And I've driven that drive 1,000,000 times, maybe 100 or 200 times. It's miserable. 8 hours. If there's not traffic when you're leaving, it's traffic when you get to San Francisco in the Bay Area. This is not a fun day. I even was trying to use that other side of my brain. Maybe you could find true love on the train. You can meet somebody new. You don't know that. It could happen, right? But we have the convenience factor, we have the environmental factor, and we have the saving lives factor on this train. What more could you possibly want? Now I hear this about the cost. I don't believe any of this thing about the cost, because the cost is there no matter what we do, because if we don't build the train, we're going to build freeways. The freeways never stop. We need to add a lane. And the lanes cost millions of dollars per mile. And if the cost is still, the infrastructure we have to build will still be there. Then we're going to have to not only have that infrastructure, then you have to repair it. Then you have to worry about the potholes. And then we won't have the money to repair the road, the train. There it goes. And it does not have to make a profit. We subsidize all mass transit, mostly with federal government dollars. And the people of California are voting for this great opportunity. How many more issues do we, how many more reasons do we need? We have convenience. We have it saving lives. We have it improving the environment. And we have it already paid for. High-speed rail, we need it, and we're in favor of it. Mr. Toastmaster.
Our second town speaker, Josh Tenenbaum.
Fellow Toastmasters, most honored guests, you've heard my opponent give the reasons why we should have high-speed rail, the convenience, the idea it's going to take cars off the road. However, I must respectfully disagree because of the high cost, the idea of government funding of a railroad that private business in our free market economy could build on its own, and the idea that a lot of people will not take the railroad and it will not be polluted. First, the funding. $68 billion. California is in the middle of a recession. I keep hearing in the paper that we're coming out of it. I don't see it. California is not Texas. Texas economy is booming. In California, we have some of the highest unemployment. Our bond ratings that you're going to have to sell are rated so low that we are the equivalent of a state such as Alabama. When we build this railroad with $68 billion of taxpayer money, we're taking that money away from something else. Where is that money coming from? The education budget. Every time there is a project, they take out of the general fund, that's money that can be spent on education, public safety, and they're putting it into a railroad. And when we float these bonds, who wouldn't want to buy a California bond? Our bond rating is low. What kind of interest is going to be paid on these bonds? Are we going to be in a situation with California, we're going to be owing money to China? China's going to buy our bonds? They're going to own everything? Perhaps. The second reason, a free market. We live in a free market economy. If this railroad is so productive and so great, why not let business build it on its own? Why do they need government money? The Transcontinental Railroad was built in 5 years. The Empire State Building, 13 months. The Golden Gate Bridge, 5 years. They didn't take government money. Let private business build it, operate it. Why not? And third, as my friend Michael said, a train to nowhere. Let's talk about convenience. I don't know if you remember in Barcelona back in 2004, Al-Qaeda went in and blew up the train. killed hundreds of people. I can't believe that on this train, we're not going to have security. You better believe it. That is a target for every terrorist group out there. So I have to believe to get on that train, you're going to be taking those shoes off, you're going to be lining up, because what would happen if a terrorist group blew it up and there were a lot of people on the train? The government will have to explain, why? We didn't do anything. We knew about Barcelona, but we said, oh, okay, the convenience. Are they going to sell alcohol? I've taken the train, the MTA from LA to downtown. You're not even allowed to eat on that train or drink. You're not allowed to. If they see you, you're going to get a fine. And they're very strict. They have sheriffs walking all over the place, and they weren't very nice to someone I saw who did that. California, at this point in our economy, doesn't need this train. And let's look at the train. The first project is going from Merced down here. Merced, what is Merced? That's an agricultural area. Most of the people in Merced, guess what? A lot of farm workers. We have a big farm worker community in Oxnard. Those people don't have a lot of money. How much is this train going to cost for the ticket? The government's going to subsidize it? Where's the money coming from? We're in the recession. We act like in California that money grows on trees. 50% of our people in this state do not pay taxes. What are we going to do? Tax everybody through the roof? We're already doing that right now. California does not need this train, and hopefully the 69% of the people who voted for the train in 2008, if they could vote again, would decide that we should not build a bullet train. Thank you.
So you have 9 seconds to rebuttal.
My colleague, Patrick Lewis, spoke in favor of the bullet train, mentioned about the jobs. There'll be 160,000 jobs created as we build this bullet train. That will help our recession. 160,000 people that will no longer be unemployed. And they'll get paid, and they'll pay taxes, and they'll pay sales taxes, and they'll buy vehicles. Oh my, maybe they'll buy train tickets. Nonetheless, we can turn that around. But the ancillary economic benefit, all those stations and the businesses will grow up around the transit, another 450,000 jobs, the transit-oriented development, we can actually turn the economy around. We talked about government funding. Well, driving cars is very unhealthy to your life. Every half an hour you spend in a car, you're not out there, you're not with your family, you're being very sedentary. Think about what we can do for our health by spending less time in our cars and going on the high-speed bullet train. You would actually have more time for recreation. We could make these communities around the transit stops walkable shopping communities. We could shop more, it would be more enticing. We live in an area where, let's put it this way, there's no there in our downtowns. Maybe we could create downtowns and shopping areas around our train stations. And we could actually improve our economy. I see the jobs, I see unemployment going down, and of course there's government subsidy. It's mass transit, all mass transit is subsidized. And if we don't do this, we're going to still be taxed the same amount to build those darn freeways. Mr. Toastmaster.
9 seconds for your rebuttal.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague that there will be jobs created, but is that the job of the government to create jobs? No. We live in a free market economy. The private business, corporate America, small businesses, that is their job to create jobs. We talk about freeways. It costs money, but why not let businesses operate freeways? Have more toll roads. Let private business actually take over functions that cities do and see if they can do a better job. Right now, with our California state government, which is a complete failure, why not give the private businesses a chance? That probably won't happen based on our current state government in Sacramento. However, there are different ways to do this. If this high-speed rail is built, which it probably will be, I'm just curious how many people are going to take it, and will people change how they live? In California, we are a community of people who love to live in the suburbs. You've seen the recent surveys. As soon as young people in downtown have kids, they don't want to live there. They want to live in the suburbs. Are we really going to change how people live? Do they want to give up their car? I don't want to give up my car. I don't know about other people here. It's something that will probably not change how people live, but we'll have that tray and we will see how.
Our third pro speaker, Dan Murray.
Good evening, Toastmasters. Well, the high-speed train has a problem. That problem really is public relations. What do I mean? Well, first of all, in an era where nationally the economy is stinkeroo and it's pretty bad here in California, we are being asked to spend money on something that seems to be a long way off. Why do it? There are a number of reasons to do it. First off, this is one that doesn't get mentioned very often. Putting in high-speed rail will mean there will be improvement in quality of life in California. Because in every country where high-speed rail now exists, that is what has happened. Can you imagine, for instance, in the 50s, the federal government decided not to build the interstate freeway system. It was going to be expensive, it wasn't going to ever make any money. But think about it. If you were on Highway 99 in the 50s before it was made into a freeway that bypassed all those towns, here's your trick. Hit Bakersfield, 16 stoplights. Early March, 1 stoplight. Delano, 4 stoplights. McFarland, 1 stoplight. Tipton, 1 stoplight. Pixton, 2 stoplights. Tulare, 6 stoplights. Fresno, 21 stoplights. Can you imagine doing that trip with all those towns having a business district and no way to bypass them? One of the things that made things much better back then was the interstate freeway system. Very expensive to build, never made any money, but it did allow other money to be made by improving things. The same thing is true with high-speed rail. First off, California. We're talking about California. California is the 6th largest economy in the entire world. 3 years ago, Time Magazine had an amazing article. In the middle of the worst part of this recession, Time Magazine wrote an article about how California is always going to be a player. True, we're in a recession now, but the reason why we're going to probably improve earlier than other states is because we have education here, we have people here, we have people who can fill jobs here. If you have a high-tech company, you're not going to find very many people to work for you in Wyoming. Same is true with other places. California is going to recover faster than the other places where we exist. Now, California is also 4th in size of a country that's doing amazing things with high-speed rail. And that country is Spain. To quote Victoria Burnett in the New York Times recently, the AVE, which is the Spanish train, has begun to transform the country, binding remote and sometimes restive regions to Madrid. The AVE has changed the way people live, the way they do business. Realizing that, let's talk about some specifics. The 2.5-hour route between Madrid and Seville claims about 89% of railroad and air traffic between the two cities. In its first year, the Madrid-Barcelona route lured nearly half the 5 million passengers who would normally fly between these cities. Works well. Okay? We also have the fact that companies are attracted to communities that have high-speed rail nearby. That's been proven in Europe. Companies like Microsoft are locating there because it makes things better. So, it also increases tourism, and I think that all things considered, even though it's unpopular because it's tough times financially, it's time for us to get moving. As Director Schneider said during the evening, not a true knocks. You have to answer. Mr. Tittle?
Welcome our third con speaker, guest from District 12, Tom Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, those who are in favor, those who are against, and those who are not yet sure about whether the bullet train is a good idea. I love trains. I actually rode a bullet train to the Shanghai airport, went the fastest train in the world, 300 and some miles an hour. Watching that number go across the board, it was exciting. It was entertaining. I'm not sure that it was efficient or worth the investment. The tie tack I'm wearing is a gift from the porter of a train I took across Canada for the entertainment. Not because I wanted to get from one place to another in a certain amount of time or at a proper cost. Some of the arguments that are brought up against the train, $68 billion. AAA has estimated that for $44 billion, you could repair every highway in California to 100% state-of-the-art highways. There would be no more potholes. It would save more than $44 billion in damages to your vehicles right now. Probably cut down your commute considerably. And it would only be 2/3 as much money. Have anybody figured out $68 billion, 35 million people? How many people are adult taxpayers? That's probably $5,000 for each and every one of you who pay taxes so that you can get to San Francisco a little quicker and a little more fun and entertaining. A rapid transit train will put people to work. Yes, they have to build all of those trains, and wait a minute, I think almost all of those trains are built in some other country, aren't they? We don't really build any much of maybe the steel rails that go, maybe not that even that. Much of that money will be spent going somewhere else. It's been talked about how wonderful it will be. We'll have that $68 billion to spend putting people to work. Of course, we could give people 10,000 rakes, and we could rake the leaves of the woods, and that would put people to work, and they would be paying taxes, and we would be producing jobs. But I'm not sure that it would provide a lasting benefit. It is nice that the opposition would like to burden my grandchildren with $68 billion worth of debt in order to build this entertainment that would get us from here to there. And then the need. Is there really a need? With the technology, I heard so much talk about technology. With the technology, less and less companies are sending their people off to actually go from here to there to go to meetings. But what they are doing is they're Skyping, they're talking online, they're doing all kinds of things in order to avoid that extra expense and time of sending people from here to there. So another reason that maybe there won't even be a need. I was a teacher, and I was on a bus trip to visiting the zoo in San Diego of 35 people, students in that bus. Not one had ever visited the zoo. Now it was estimated how many trips they'll have to take from Los Angeles to San Francisco in order for it to end up making money if large numbers of our population don't even get from Riverside to San Diego. How many of those people will be serviced by a train that gets us from here to San Francisco? I believe it is an extreme waste of time. It is putting a burden on our grandchildren. And in the end, it will benefit other countries more than us. I was glad to bring up here, the thing is part of the rebuttal, but glad to bring up the idea of what's going on in Spain, because if you check the world economy, it seems that Spain comes in right behind Greece in terms of a viable economy. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. As my dear grandmother was used to saying, baloney. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit, okay? Statistics created by my friend from the Auto Club of Southern California, that it would take $40 billion to completely repair all of the highways in California. $40 billion. That doesn't mean any new highways, And why should we listen to the AAA anyway? Because what's their business?
Cars.
Cars, thank you very much. Of course they're going to point out reasons why high-speed rail doesn't work. Because they're in the car business. The other thing is, if you have all those freeways in perfect shape, what you have is a great freeway on which you're going to go 10 to 15 miles an hour in many sets of circumstances, because we're not talking about new freeways, we're talking about existing freeways. My final point, in Barcelona, when the terrorists attacked, it was not a high-speed train. The train was part of a city system, different circumstances altogether. You need bullet trains in California.
We'll be back up, Tom Dennison.
We talked about how it will be a tremendous amount of expense. We also talked about the possibility that will have an impact on the environment. We talked about the impact on the environment. Remember the impact on the environment when they had the oil pipeline in Alaska, where they had to send this oil line across the continent, and it impacted endangered species and all kinds of things. There's people in those communities that will be impacted by the noise, impacted by the danger of 200 or 300 mile an hour trains whizzing by. How many people do we have killed? It was one of the things I saw on the internet about a large number of people that were killed by a collision of two bullet trains in China. It is not just an easy solution. There are problems with the bullet trains in terms of danger, in terms of impact upon the community, in terms of impact on the environment, in terms of this tremendous impact of a $68 billion debt to the future of making sure that something that we think maybe will work in a community like California, which the population is much more askew than they are in most of those other countries. And we have one other little issue that is a problem. We have many hundreds of miles of bullet trains in China in which they don't really have to worry about whether someone says yes or no, we'll let you build this train through here. This thing could be tied up in the courts for years and still wouldn't happen. We would still have the debt. And do you really think that this new Republican impact in Congress is going to continue to support bullet trains? They've already threatened to start cutting off the funding that they had promised. Bullet trains in California, when not only is California in such a great state of deficit, but the federal government is going to try to find ways not to spend the amounts of money that they have on issues like this. Mr. Tobin, table time.
Thank you, Tom, and Dan, and all of the debate speakers. I think it's a very lively debate.